Welcome everyone to another video. My name is Hagop, aka Hags, and today I want to share the question that everyone has on their mind when starting property investing. And that is the North versus the South. And where should you choose to buy your property investment? And there's a lot of pros and cons to each. So I'm going to start straight away with the North, and then of course we'll head to the South later in the video. So with the North, of course, the first thing that springs to mind is the price. Of course, the prices up north is significantly cheaper than the South. Not only that, this will apply to the stamp duty of the purchase of the property, because of course, the cheaper the property, the less stamp duty you pay. There's always a 3% charge. But including this, over many years, you can see great developments that have come around. You can see new builds all over the North, new job opportunities, which of course in turn will appreciate the value of the property in the long term. And this goes hand in hand with the yield. So if you're looking to do a rental or even a flip, great appreciation in the area, and of course you get great yields around certain areas. Of course, not every area up north, but to name the two, I would say Liverpool and Manchester. But the flip strategy is definitely still there for properties up north. But of course, this in turn will mean having to make that travel if you don't live up north to ultimately get there to view the properties, of course, flip the property, sell the property, and then move on to the next sort of thing. Like I mentioned many times of the price in the north, a lot of people are actually looking to relocate to the north, and we've seen that so much over the recent years. And not only that, they have plenty of unis up there, a lot of very good unis. And what does that mean? A lot of houses can be turned into, of course, HMO styles or student lets. And now moving on to the cons, I would say that the type of tenant, not as good as a tenant from the South. And let me explain. Salaries are low. Not only that, there aren't as many job opportunities as there are down South. That means you may get tenants who might not pay on time. You may not get tenants who fit the criteria to pay. Ultimately, I wouldn't put that as the worst negative out there. I'm not saying everyone in the North is a bad tenant. I would say a few more than there is in the South. Agree or disagree, let me know down below. They're still developing a lot of things. And I know with the HS2 line, they did halt that, or should I say they completely stopped that, which means it would have stopped a large number of people moving up north who would have possibly worked more in London or Midlands. So now, moving on to the South. Of course, I'll give you my verdict at the end, but moving on to the South and of course the positives behind there. And naturally, a lot of people love the South. You've got the coast, you've got the beautiful beaches. Being able to travel, for example, from Brighton to London isn't the hardest thing in the world. It's pretty much one train and you get there into central London. So of course, people who are working in London can of course live in the South because of the transport links there. I understand that the prices might be high, but the types of tenants you're going to get, for example, are very solid. There's a lot of job opportunities, of course, all across the South. And a lot of people love almost like a holiday home. So if you're renting a property out on Airbnb, for example, there's no reason why you won't get tenants who will come on the weekend and stay there for 1 or 2 nights. And this ultimately will give you much better yields. And not only that, there are, again, great unis down south, which means you can turn them into HMOs and rent it out that way. And like I mentioned in the north, there's a lot of developments going on. There's a lot of new schools opening. There's a lot of new transport, like I mentioned, being access to different locations. And the appreciation in the south is very good. I know at the minute it's not the best, but ultimately everywhere's not doing great at the moment. But I've got a property down south, and the appreciation over the past 2.5 years or so I've had it has been incredible. There's a lot of demand, is the best way of putting it. But now, let's move on to the negatives. So the first one is, of course, the stamp duty. If you're looking for a property investment, it's 3%, and it just means it's going to add up even more, knowing that the property purchase is going to be higher as it is. So that's another cost you have to factor. And of course, when you're selling the property on, you have to factor that the property price is quite high, so solicitor fees and all that sort of stuff might vary. You could argue that you could purchase 2 properties in the north for 1 property in the south. So it all comes down to your preference, it all comes down to where you're located, and of course, what your budget is ultimately. Because if you can't afford a property investment in the south, then why not go to the north? And I live in London myself, and my property investments are 2 hours away. I wouldn't go any further, really, than 2 hours, 2.5 hours. I wouldn't be able to put a finger down on which one I would prefer, because I've invested in both. I've flipped properties somewhat in the north, not all the way in the north, but I've also had a property in the south, and I think both of them have great pros to them. So again, it comes down to preference, it comes down to what you're looking for and what your budget is. So there we have it. Those are my pros and cons to buying a property investment in the north versus the south. Let me know down below which one you prefer, or if you have any properties, whereabouts are they located? Let me know down below. But I've been Haggle, aka Hanks. Don't forget the name, and I'll catch you in the next video.